Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this planning meeting of the 23rd of March. For April. Absolutely, it's it's the 20th of April. I'm looking at the minutes. Sorry. Just making sure you're all awake.
Back in time.
Okay. This evening's meeting is a hybrid meeting, and as mentioned earlier, only members that are present in the chamber will be allowed to vote on the applications before us this evening. We have 3 applications on the agenda, one of which has been deferred for further information, which is agenda item 5, which is land to the rear of Oak Tree Nursery, change of use of land and building from agricultural to vehicle repairs. That has been deferred to a later meeting for further information. So with that said, we'll move straight on with the first items on the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, I've received apologies from councillors Mrs Mattick, Hayden, Bandari, Mrs Mackenzie Boyle, Mrs Mackenzie and Skinner.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other apologies being brought? Thank you. Agenda item 2 is any urgent items of business. Are there any? Oh yeah, any urgent items? There are none. So next item is to approve the correct records of the minutes of the meeting on the 23rd of March. Are there any questions of accuracy on those minutes? I have one thing. Councillor Mrs Mattick advised me that she did send her apologies, but they're not noted. So can we just change the minutes to note her apologies, please? Thank you. So the next item is to look at the applications. No, there were no urgent items. Oh, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Declarations of interest are noted on your minutes? No? Thank you. So, as I said, the item number 5 has been deferred, so we move straight on to item number 6, which is land at Palm Hills Estate, London Road, Bracknell. Thank you very much. Simon.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I was worried then. Okay. Right. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. This application was previously considered by the Planning Committee at its meeting on the 23rd of March, at which time the agenda item was deferred pending the submission of further information. Since deferral, amended plans reducing the size of the first floor studies from 5.6 square metres to 4.5 square metres and providing clarification as to what is proposed have been submitted, and references to these amendments will be made in this presentation, and a comparison of the changes are set out on the supplementary report together with changes to the officer report, revised conditions and an additional condition that is to be recommended. The application seeks minor amendments to a scheme for 81 houses which was previously allowed on appeal. The site layout plan shows the 4 categories of proposed changes set against a specific colour to clearly show where on the site the changes would take place. The following slides set out examples of each of the 4 proposed minor material amendments. The first slide shows a minor increase in the depth of the garage at plot 1 by 1.5 metres, and it's highlighted here in red. The next 2 slides show an example of the changes that would be applied to plots 1 to 12 and 78-81, with the specific example being of plots 5 to 6. The changes consist of internal alterations whereby an additional bedroom has been included within the roof space. A previously approved small first floor third bedroom reduced in floor area and turned into a home office, along with a single-storey rear 1.35 addition at the back. So this is the study that we're referring to on the first floor. This highlights the addition at the back of the property, and this is the bedrooms within the roof space. An example of the proposed study layout on the plots applied for can be seen on this slide. Please note that the proposed studies are now shown to have a floor area of 4.5 square metres, compared with 5.6 square metres as previously presented to members in March, and 6.5 square metres as originally allowed at appeal when considered as a bedroom. Although the applicant has applied to replace small first floor bedrooms with studies, it is considered that due to the size and layout of the proposed studies, they could not be later used as bedrooms. The national prescribed standard, albeit guidance, for a bedroom is that it should have a minimum floor area of 7.5 square metres and a minimum width of 2.15 metres. This standard provides a useful indicator as to how realistically the studies could be used as bedrooms given their previous proposed use. Generally, a single bed is 1.9 metres by 0.9 metres, and it is usual for a bedroom to contain bedside tables, wardrobes, drawers, etc. The proposed studies have a floor area of 4.5 square metres, which is 40% smaller than the recommended minimum floor area that a room should be provided, should be to provide an acceptable level of accommodation when used as a bedroom. The maximum width of the proposed studies is 1.85 metres, which is 30 centimetres less than the recommended minimum room width, and is also under what seems to be the minimum length of a single bed. The next slide shows a minor rear ground floor projection increased in depth by 56 centimetres, highlighted here, at plots 18 to 19 as an example of what is proposed to plots 18 to 21, 26 to 31 and 68 to 73. And this final slide shows a minor rear ground projection of 1.35 metres added to plots 23 and 24 as an example of what is proposed to plots 23 to 25 and 74 to 76, and you can see it here. As a result of the Section 73 submission, other conditions imposed by the inspector at the appeal would need to be updated and as such varied to reflect the current position with regard to the development of the site. The Council's drainage officer has confirmed that the principle of the drainage strategy is in accordance with the previously approved drainage strategy. However, a revision to the detailed drainage scheme is required in order to take account of the minor changes now proposed. The drainage officer has confirmed that there are no constraints to improving the drainage network to take account of these changes, and recommends that a detailed drainage scheme can be secured by way of conditions. The environmental health officer has confirmed that the amendments do not have any consequences for the approved gas mitigation measures and site remediation plans. The local highway authority do not require any additional on-plot parking to be provided, as overall no additional bedrooms will be provided, with proposed L-shaped studies now included to meet an identified post-pandemic need for specific home working space. As such, the proposals would not result in any highway safety implications. The proposed changes would not result in any significant impacts upon residential amenity, as the changes would not appear overbearing, would not overshadow, and the second floor back-to-back relationships would be no less than 32 metres apart. To conclude, the proposed minor changes are not considered to result in any adverse impacts upon the character and appearance of the approved scheme, or result in any additional highway or environmental implications, and subject to conditions, no drainage implications. Considering all of this, it is recommended that the Assistant Director of Planning be authorised to approve the application, subject to conditions as set out in both the committee report and supplementary report, and the completion of a deed of variation linking the new consent with the original signed Section 106. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Virgo.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Can I just ask, just for my interest really, page 46, we talk about sewage, because this is a huge site actually, clearly. Do we as an authority get Thames Water to sign off on this with the flow in the road, or do we just accept it and send it to Thames Water, but Thames Water don't reply, so therefore we think it's okay.
I'm just going down to
Yeah.
page 46. Where on page 46 is this? Sorry, is this one of the conditions?
Yeah, it just says, you know, that they have submitted a sewage system which has been approved in writing by the local planning authority.
Either.
On page 46 on mine.
Yeah, just read. Yeah, sorry, just reading that now.
Condition 25.
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, this will be a scheme that I think these were conditions that were imposed by the inspector. So I'm trying to find
Yeah.
the reasoning for that. There will be reasoning within the appeal decision. Confirmation has been provided to the local planning authority for sewage undertaking sufficient capacity. Scheme through proven system has been submitted to. I mean, with that, I don't think we'd necessarily specifically consult with Thames Water. It might be that I would consult with my colleagues in building control, and maybe even my colleague in drainage, who's here tonight. That condition was put on by the inspector, so yeah, it's not a normal.
We've actually got Athura online this evening. Athura, have you got a comment to make on that, please?
Yeah, one moment. Just turning on my camera. Yeah, so typically on a scheme like this, for the sewage network, the applicants would have to put in a section 106 agreement with Thames Water to have that connection. So as Simon said, when it comes to actually building, a building control would have to make sure that that section 106 agreement to connect into it, so that we're talking about a foul water drainage network. So the applicant would be obliged to make this section 106 application to Thames Water, and Thames Water will look at their drainage network and then check the discharge that the applicant is proposing to discharge into the drainage network, and they would be able to confirm if there is capacity within their drainage network to take the flows. So I would imagine that this is something that it would have to be done before the building commences, or by all means before any discharge is made into the existing public sewage network. So to be honest, I haven't seen this condition has been discharged by myself or the LP. I haven't seen any record of it, but rest assured it's something that the developer would have to present to planning control, that they've got this approval from Thames Water before any discharge can be made into the drainage network.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo, do you have another question?
Yeah, I'd just like to push on with that question, actually. I didn't like, well, at least it didn't actually satisfy my curiosity, I suppose. Obliged, I don't think is the word I would use here. I think mandatory would be a word I'd use. They have to get permission. Yeah. I mean, if we need a condition for that, Mr. Chairman, I think we should have one. This is a huge site going into a public sewage system, which must be able to take it, otherwise we'll be in dead trouble.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But when it comes to all developments, I think the expectation is that the developer has the right to connect. And so the responsibility or the liability will be placed on Thames Water in liaison with the applicant if there is any requirement for the drainage network to be upgraded or improved. Then that liaison or that communication would be had with the applicant for them to make any contributions for that to happen. So yeah, we are happy to keep an eye on it and put a condition for the developer to present to us the Section 106 agreement for Thames Water, just to make sure that everything has been covered and is catered for.
So for clarifications, what you're saying is that the developer has to enter into a legal agreement, and a part of that legal agreement is with Thames Water to be able to connect to the sewage network. Is that right?
That is correct. So it's called a Section 106 agreement, the right to connect into the existing drainage network. So I wouldn't say it's a legal agreement, but it's a consent that Thames Water would have to give to the developer to say that, yeah, we've assessed your development, we know the rates that is coming into our system, we know the capacity of our system, and we are happy to take the flows. If Thames Water have got any concerns, then they would have to, because the developer has got the right to connect, then Thames Water would also have the responsibility to upgrade the drainage network, and any cost that results from doing that would have to be borne by the applicant.
Can I just also add that this query that you're making at the moment relates to the original application, okay? And the original application has been passed by an inspector. The amendments of this Section 73 application doesn't necessarily affect the sewage. The drainage it might, the sewage it doesn't, okay? Because there are no additional bedrooms being sought. So, I mean, in this case, I think we're actually going over ground that's already been covered. I realise that this committee refused this application, but it was one under appeal. But just bear that in mind. So you have another question?
Yes, Mr.
Councillor?
Chairman, I must come back on that. I'm really sorry. But the residents of Bracknell Forest have got to be assured that the sewage is adequately dealt with. And if I have to raise it in this point, and then I would like that recorded, because I think the problem at the moment is that although the officer is quite right, but they would have done a pre-apt on this with Thames Water, and we've got to be sure that Thames Water is happy with the system. Otherwise, if the system just is connected, it's overloaded. And the resident. No, let me just finish, please. And the residents of Bracknell will be suffered.
If you want to say this in debate,
I want a
you
condition
can.
put down.
Any other questions? Councillor Mrs Hayes.
Yes, I'll carry on from there, because it's quite apparent when we say description of what has been brought before this council. So we say that we went from a 6.5 original, which was passed and allowed.
You're talking
that
about
the bedroom.
The study.
Yeah. Oh no, we're talking about bedroom. That went from 6.5 original down to 5.6. It was only because of the last meeting it has suddenly come down to 4.5 a study. Can you verify for me that this study, in a later date, because the floor plan doesn't go back to 6.5, in the conditions?
I can
Simon, do you want
confirm
to take
that these. Yes, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, I can confirm that at the end of the day, these are the approved plans, and I think it was mentioned last time at committee that the approved plans are enforceable. And at the end of the day, we believe last time when the study was at the other floor area, the larger floor area, we were of the opinion then that it wasn't a bedroom then. So and we've got the condition that says that bedrooms, those properties should remain as 3 bedrooms. We've actually got another condition now on the supplementary report talking about evidence to be submitted of the sales particulars to make sure that they are actually marketed as such. So I think we've covered all bases with that. But the approved plans are the approved plans, and so they could be enforced, yes.
Can I, through the chair, ask
as long as
more?
it's a question, yeah.
Yes. Therefore, what does one consider a nursery size then? Because I would say a cot is not a bed as such. Just as a complimentary on that, what is a nursery?
Yeah, I mean, you could put a cot in any room in the house, but it wouldn't require an additional car parking space. So that can't really answer anything other than that, really.
Who will be verifying that these conditions are being carried to the full amount, where they're not being abused or changed without us being aware of it?
Can I just point you to the supplementary report?
I saw the supplementary,
Okay.
it changed a few times. I'm just
okay.
asking for the public's.
Okay, the supplementary report. Simon, do you just want to cover that, the changes we made on the supplementary report with regards
Yeah,
to
no problem at all. I'll just bring up my copy of it. I'm sure I've got it. And I'll stop sharing this and I'll share. You will see that. Well, that should be my supplementary report. So what we've got now, so we have the condition that we added last time, which talked about the bedrooms being, the properties in question regarding studies being restricted to 3 bedrooms. And now we've also got this additional condition here that we've put together to sort of almost like another belt and braces approach here to try to address some of the concerns raised over the last couple of sessions. And this condition is prior to the practical completion of development phase, as defined by the approved phasing plan, and that has been approved. The marketing sales particulars for that phase, demonstrating compliance with the approved plans listed under condition 04 of permission, and that is the reference number for this permission, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Each dwelling shall be marketed using only approved marketing sales particulars. So what that does is it links phases of development where then the sales marketing particulars would have to be submitted for us to look at in order for us then, and they would have to be compliant with condition 4, which sets out all the approved plans that we would approve if consent is given. So I think that's sort of another sort of belt and braces approach to making sure that not only does the dwelling the other condition is about restricting the use to 3 bedrooms, and this condition is about making sure it's marketed as such as well. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, so what we're saying basically is that, you know, we're passing a 3-bedroom house. They can't then go ahead and market a 3.5 or 4-bedroom house without our knowledge. Councillor Barnard.
So I've been looking at these plans, and if you were to fiddle about with a few of the stud walls inside, you could recreate that 4th bedroom very easily. So the question I have is, would there be any sort of covenant that would stop anyone buying that house, internally readjusting it to turn it into a 4-bedroom house? Because if you look at where the L is for the laundry unit, if you look at the built-in wardrobes and you look back to the previous plan, my suspicion is you could very easily realign it, because they're not going to be load-bearing walls in that sort of structure. We know that they're stud walls, and actually if you look at the position of the doors, and if you look at the fact that conveniently one of the bedrooms now has a built-in wardrobe.
Okay, so what's your question?
My question is, it looks as if it could be very readily converted to a 4-bedroom house, and that is a big issue in that.
I think that's a fact of anybody's house in the borough. You can't control internal.
So if it can be converted to 4-bedroom,
let me just come to head of planning, and I'll get him to give us.
And then I've got a supplementary.
Sorry, what the chairman is saying is absolutely correct. That, you know, it's a fact of life that people can make internal changes to their properties, and you can't sort of remove that permitted development right because it's not development. So it's not even a permitted development. It doesn't count as development, and people can use rooms in their houses for whatever purpose, within reason. So unless you had a particular reason to do that on this development as opposed to any other 3-bedroom house, it wouldn't be acceptable. Sorry, I think I've probably said enough on that. It just is a very common characteristic that's what people can do, but you can't refuse planning permission on the basis of what notionally someone might do. That just wouldn't stack up at a pill.
So can I ask a supplementary?
Yeah.
So when Councillor Mrs Hayes said you could put a cot in it, the very specific words that officers used in response were, a cot doesn't need an extra parking space. Well, if you can actually convert it and put a bed into it, it's now a 4-bedroom house that does need a parking space. And if you look at that site, the angles, the elevations, I think that would put parking under significant pressure, and I'm not convinced that the way these plans are put in place here would actually stop that happening. And as officers already said in this meeting...
We're not in debate.
Well, no, the question is, why, if that answer was given early, clearly if you could create an extra bedroom or put in it, that will put pressure on parking. Can I have that confirmation?
I mean, no more in this case than in any other property that we give permission for that could have its bedrooms subdivided.
Okay, can I just say something here? Can I bring this back? This is a Section 73 application for minor changes to some of the plots There are now, when we look at every single application that we've ever seen on this planning committee, we pass approved plans, and we expect the properties to be built as per the approved plans, because that's what we approve. We have no control over what people do internally. Once we have passed those approved plans, people were moved in and changed stud wall inside the house. It's not something that we need to be concerned with. Councillor Mrs Hayes.
Yes, you mentioned the word Section 73, sir. Do you, in yourself, believe this is a Section 73 minor alteration? Yes. Do you think these are minor alterations?
As you know, Councillor Hayes, I asked that question at my briefing, and I was clearly told by legal that this is a Section 73 application. Councillor Green.
Just wanted to ask a question on the supplementary page 32, where it says the proposed room is 1.85, which is 30 centimetres less than the recommended minimum room width. But it also says, and is also under what it seems to be the minimum size of a single mattress. So it's only doing one of the measurements, not two. Do we actually know what the second measurement is to prove that it's not
Oh,
for like a smaller children's bed?
well, the bed sizes that I've quoted in my report comes up as 1.9 meters by 0. Sorry, let me just zoom in on this slide here because I should say it. I did a bit of research on standards and I came up with some here, and it comes up with a small single is 75 by 1.90, and the single bed, standard single bed, 90 by 1.90 centimeters. So they both have a length of 90 centimeters, 190. So again, it just proves that that bed would be too big for the space. And it's not just about having the bed in there; it's about a functional space. You know, the door opens in. You have associated paraphernalia within a bedroom that you would expect to find, as mentioned. So, I really do feel my professional opinion is that it doesn't encourage the use as a bedroom.
Yeah. You have to remember there is also a condition in this that restricts these properties to 3 bedrooms.
Can I just...
Yes,
Microphone, Jamie.
Councillor Virgo.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I think we talked about the fact of checking on this with literature, didn't we, in the condition? Yeah. The only thing I would say, and I know this was mentioned early on, I don't know who the building control is, whether it's Bracknell Forest or whether it's the other one. Well, it does matter in a sense, because if it was...
Not in planning it doesn't, Councillor Virgo, and that's what we're dealing with.
I find it very frustrating, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me being a little verbose, but I think the members are trying to find a way through this.
Any other questions?
No one online.
Anybody online? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Balibo.
Thank you, Councillor Balibo here. Good evening. I just want clarification on what is the definition of Section 73. My understanding is this is really meant for the amendment of conditions. What we're talking about, some of the stuff we're talking about is amending plans and dimensions, not conditions. So can the officer just clarify to me at what point because I understand that this went through appeal and passed, but the appeal decision was for the planning that went before, not this particular. So this to me feels or should be another planning permission.
I asked exactly that question. Jackie, when I spoke to your colleague on Monday night, I asked that exact question about what constitutes a Section 73. Did she brief you on that?
I'm afraid not, Chairman. No, I hadn't realised.
I can't hear you, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now, Chairman? Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, apologies. No, I'm really sorry. I wasn't aware that that question had been put. But obviously a Section 73 application, yes, it is dealing with amendments to conditions, but in this particular case, the conditions obviously refer to the plans, the relevant plans. So it's those that are the requested amendments in this case. Yeah, it would come within Section 73. These are considered to be minor material amendments.
Thank you.
Hope that helps.
Yeah. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I have a question about the shape of the room. Is that an alcove where the window is, please?
Yeah, let me just, can you see this okay? Is it still sharing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a windowsill as such.
Is it an alcove to the window?
To me, it looks like a windowsill, but
Or except
is that not the same? Is that not the same thing?
No. It has no line across from the wall to the wall.
I believe there is a line across there. It's just that it's got the red line over the top of it.
Tricky.
Yeah,
but
so the answer is no, it's not an alcove. It's a windowsill.
Right.
Councillor Green.
Yes, could I just ask one final question, please? On the drawing that you've got here, the door goes in. If the door was to come out, does that make more room for the bed, or does the length go from the window down to where the door closes?
I can see your point. I think at the end of the day, once that bed starts to protrude into that area where it's narrower, where the door is, you start to get access issues going into there, and it's not necessarily about whether you can actually put a bed in, even at a funny angle. It's whether or not the room functions properly, and to me that wouldn't function properly still, and it would to me be more of a space that would be used as proposed, a study or workspace for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about, you put a bed there, you have to climb over a bed to get into the room. We're being a bit pedantic here, I think. Councillor Ballyboe, you got another question, did you say?
Yes, I'm just trying to understand, do forgive me, Chair. If this application was approved on appeal, why are we changing, why is this a problem? Why are they changing it?
Why are they changing it?
I don't understand.
I mean, that's really a question for the developer rather than for us, but obviously as a planning authority we have a duty to determine applications that are put before us, and particularly with larger developments like this, Section 73 applications are actually very common. They're approved up and down the country all the time, particularly for changes to plans, and you can see in this case, developers got their permission some time ago. They're looking at the market, they're seeing some of the figures that are referred to in the report about the numbers of people that are working at home. So it really shouldn't come as any surprise that they're looking at the way the market's going and are seeking to accommodate that sort of demand.
Okay. As long as it's a question, yeah.
It is a question. Very quickly, with regards to the garage, I know I'm sure it's in there. The garages cannot be converted at any time, and the conditions are very strongly put in there.
I'd have to check conditions. I think we had this question last time. I'm just looking.
As one of them has been extended, as we noted.
Do bear with me, I'm just looking through them.
Page 20, it's condition 21.
It's part of the conditional team.
Well,
Yes.
those conditions will have been carried over.
They have been carried over. I mean, some of them would have been slightly reworded to accommodate what might have been signed off in between the approval, the allow appeal and what we're looking at today. But that was a condition that was pulled over from the appeal decision.
Just so there is no way that that garage that's been extended or garage is being extended can be converted.
Unless the applicant comes back to this.
But there is a
authority.
condition on that property.
Yes, and that
There is,
condition's
yeah, that's plot one.
in perpetuity. Unless they come back to this planning authority and put in a planning application to do so.
Correct, yes.
Okay, I'm going to move the officer's recommendation, which is on page 40, and as amended by the supplementary on pages 1 and 2. If I have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Brossard. Members, we need to bring this back to planning issues and planning issues that you are dealing with at this planning committee. We are not dealing with planning issues that have, unfortunately, in my view, already been passed by the inspector. That is a fact of life, and it's something we have to live with. But we have to deal with the amendments of the plans that has been submitted by this applicant, and the amendments do not make any provision for any additional bedrooms. We have put additional conditions on this application to ensure that there is no incentive for the developer to market these with additional bedrooms, because we are going to see any marketing material before the scheduled areas are finished. And therefore, I can't see any planning reason, and we've got to look at planning reasons as to why we shouldn't approve these non-material amendments. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yes, very, very briefly, Chairman, just really to, I don't want to reiterate what you've said, but it's very clear that this is a somewhat challenging application, shall we say, that does revolve around Section 73. In the old days, it used to be dealt with, I think, as an amendment. This now is a Section 73 classification. What we've got, I think, the report that's been produced by Simon, which is in the supplementary, I think does encapsulate extremely well the change in the dimensions. What would have been originally perceived as potentially a bedroom then became a study which again could be challenged in terms of the dimensions, and the latest definition of it, 4.5 square metres, does demonstrate within the plan that we've seen that it is capable of accommodating a cot, yes, capable probably of accommodating a child's bedroom, but that would not in itself lead to an additional parking space requirement. And I think we have to focus on what we've got in front of us rather than what might happen in the future. And for that reason, I have to say, Chairman, I will be supporting the application, the recommendation for approval from Simon's report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Would any other member wish to speak? Councillor Mrs Hayes.
It would be amiss of me not to at least explain that I have no qualms about a Section 73, sir. But when it is such whereby it could be altered at a certain stage, my residents would be asking me, why didn't you ask this question and why didn't you ask that? And I concur with you, Councillor Brossard, that it is before us as a Section 73, but we must look at how a 73 is dealt with. This, to me, I do have concerns about the future and the development of it. I'm hoping that what has been put before us now, last month there was incorrect plans and such, and the conditions were wrong. Now it was only because we had it deferred that it's come back in a better condition. I still have reservations about what we are allowing under a Section 73. This is not an alteration to a one-person dwelling. This is a site, and I have concerns, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Dr Barnard.
So I fully appreciate and understand the Section 73. But what I'm really struggling with is that this was a pretty constrained site to begin with. That, you know, I totally accept that, you know, a householder can come in and change the internal layout of a a house and create an extra room. I mean, you know, that's the freedom and flexibility. And if, as has been said, it was to one property, I don't think it would impact on the overall situation one way or the other. But just imagine if that become the sort of established way of doing things. And if you go around established estates, you know, homeowners make similar developments because they get the same changes, because they get the same architects involved that can do it. So my big concern is that it's actually quite a tight site to begin with. And although there are real concerns of whether we can actually, you know, hold some of these things, that if, let's say, for example, 3 or 4 of those properties made changes and generate additional parking, because when actually Councillor Mrs Hayes asked the question about, you know, you could put a cot in that, the officer response was, well, cots don't generate cars, but actually if the room is then used as a bedroom by minor modifications, it might well generate an extra car. So my big concern is that, yes, it's in principle a minor amendment, but in practice, because it is not just one property, it is significant material changes to a large number of properties, all that would then have the potential. And if you actually look at where the stud walls and things are in there, it's one of those where actually just get rid of a built-in wardrobe and get rid of the large laundry cupboard, and hey presto, you have a room that's back to the other size. So I'm really concerned about this, because I think actually, you know, also with the topography and layout of the site, that I think we're storing up problems. Now, I've actually sort of in advance of this read that it is actually possible under various other things, slightly stronger than a condition, where you can actually materially restrict the ability for anyone using, you know, in a house to actually change the number of bedrooms or make such changes. I mean, for goodness sake, if we could stop people keeping chickens in their garden and stop them doing other things, then we can limit that, because I really do worry that decisions made now could potentially have a significant impact down the line, and that is not a generous site in terms of additional parking spaces and things like that, because it is being designed in, I think, clearly on appeal it was decided to be acceptable, but it's not generous. And, you know, an extra 5, 10, 15 cars parking there over the next few years suddenly changes it. So I'm really uncomfortable with this, because it is a good report, and no criticism of the officer that put together the report, but I'm not sure the full consequences of what this means has been thought through, and I'm really struggling with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Dr Barnard. Any other member wish to speak? Okay. I'll try and bring us back to the fact that this is a Section 73 application. They are non-material amendments, effectively, but no, they're not. There's a Section 70 application for material amendments. We have to remember that we can only look and make a decision on plans that are submitted to us. And those plans that are submitted to us are then either passed or refused by you or under delegation by our officers. We would then expect properties that when they are built or when they are altered or extended to be built or altered or extended in accordance with those approved at that point plans. If they are not built or extended or altered to those approved plans, they do not have planning permission to do it. Now, these properties are 3-bedroom properties. There is a condition to say that there are 3-bedroom properties, and there is also a condition that we ask the developer to send us the marketing material to show that they are being marketed as 3-bedroom properties before any phase is finished. I don't believe that we can do any more than that. If we look against many, many years, and I know many of you have been on this planning committee longer than I have, and I've been on it for 20 years, you can look at some of the properties that we have passed planning permission for that have massive bedrooms, and you could say, well, that could be made into 4 bedrooms. We can only go by what the plans are that are put in front of us, and I think that these properties have far more protection than some other properties that have been passed in the past. 2 kinds of past there. So I can only ask you to remind you that all we can do is put emotion aside and look at this with our planning hats on. A lot of us are very experienced planning councillors. Put your planning hats on and look at this under planning policy. All those in favour to approve, please show. And those against? And any abstentions? That's passed. Thank you, members. We move on then to agenda item 7, which is an outline application for the Oak Tree Nursery, Bracknell Road. And that, I believe, is Sarah, is it?
It is, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Just bear with me a minute. Get rid of that. There we go. Right. Apologies. You should all be able to see my screen now.
I can hear it. If you can make it slightly larger, that would be really useful, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay.
It's
The
great.
application
Yeah, great.
The application before you tonight seeks outline planning permission for a rural workers' dwelling connected with the Oak Tree Nursery and World of Water, which operate out of Oak Tree Garden Centre, Bracknell Road, Warfield. At this stage, permission for the principle of the dwelling and details of the access is sought, with all other matters, the scale, the siting, appearance and landscaping, are reserved for approval at a later date. These will be considered as part of any subsequent reserved matters application. In a bit too much. So here you have the outline of the application site. It is located northeast of Oak Tree Nursery, which is this complex of buildings located here. You have the Stirrups Hotel complex opposite, and the site is within the corner of land owned by Oak Tree Nursery. Here is a more in-depth site plan showing the access details with annotation, proposed dwelling sited with proposed curtilage within the dotted line. And here are the site photos. So the actual application site would be accessed via this existing dropped curb and old access. So there's actually a culverted bit of the ditch running across in existence at the moment. So this is taken within the site looking back towards the complex of buildings at Oak Tree Nursery, and here you can see one of the dwellings on the frontage of Bracknell Road further on up. So this is the hedgerow to Bracknell Road, looking again into the site. Obviously, when I visited it, it was a different time of year. The grasses were a lot higher than they are currently. And this is the gateway to the existing access that I pointed out. It's now overgrown, but it was previously an access. This is a photo from within the nursery site where they do propagate and grow their own plants. And this is one of the polytunnels where that takes place. And this is one of the seeding machines that they have for actually loading the trays with seeds. And this is one of the heating units to heat the polytunnels so that the bedding plants are brought on and available for sale at the right time of year. The application is located within the Greenbelt, and therefore the application has been assessed in accordance with policy GB1 of the local plan and the NPPF. Paragraph 149 of the NPPF states that local planning authorities should regard the construction of new buildings as inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. Exceptions to this are given within the NPPF, paragraph 149, which is replicated at paragraph 9.7 of the officer's report. New dwellings are not development listed within the exceptions and hence considered as inappropriate development. Therefore, very special circumstances will need to be demonstrated to allow the principle of the dwelling. Policy stipulates that substantial weight is given to any harm to the openness of the greenbelt. Paragraph 80 of the NPPF discourages isolated homes within the countryside, one of the exceptions being for a rural worker, i.e. someone who has to live close to their place of work to respond to emergencies which would endanger the life and well-being of animals or result in significant loss of stock. The application was assessed by an independent consultant who is an expert in rural businesses. The full assessment can be found starting at paragraph 9.21 on page 56 of the officer's report. It was found that Oak Tree Nursery and World of Water establish a need for a worker to live close to the site to respond to any out-of-hours emergencies which may occur, and that the businesses were financially sound. Accordingly, it is considered that very special circumstances have been demonstrated in this case. This need for a rural worker's dwelling has to be assessed against the harm to the openness of the greenbelt, which policy stipulates should be given substantial weight in any decision. This balancing exercise can be found at paragraphs 9.37 to 9.39 on pages 58 and 59 of the officer's report. An indicative elevation of a detached modest form of bungalow, which I did have in my presentation. Just bear with if I can get through all these photos. Okay. An indicative elevation of a detached modest dormer bungalow submitted by the applicant was used to assess the impact upon the greenbelt. And whilst there would be an impact, it was considered that this style of dwelling would keep the impact to a minimum, and therefore, in this instance, the need for a rural worker's dwelling in this location outweighs the harm to the openness of the greenbelt, and the principle of a dwelling in this location is considered acceptable. Condition 10 stipulates that a dwelling must be occupied by a worker either employed or last employed by Oak Tree Nursery due to the very special circumstances that make this dwelling acceptable. An informative is also recommended requiring any reserved matters application to demonstrate that the proposed dwelling in terms of its siting, scale and design minimises the harm to the openness of the greenbelt. The application was assessed by highways and biodiversity officers. No objection was raised and relevant conditions have been imposed. The proposal is therefore before the committee, recommended for approval as per section 11, page 61 of the reports pack. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Okay, members, just to remind you, this is an outline application, and so only principle of development and means of access are being considered at this juncture. I've got a question on highways actually. I noticed that the gate that is proposed as part of the access is to be set 6 metres back from the highway. So am I right in saying that the proposed gate will be quite substantially deeper into the property than the gate we saw on that plan?
Through you, Chair. Or do you want to answer that one, Sarah, or would you like me to answer it?
It's condition 5, and it was just that any gates proposed or provided should be set 6 metres back. I don't believe any gates are proposed at this stage.
I was going to concur with that. I think the condition there is to protect the use if gates are required, Chair. Obviously, it's the first I've seen that photo actually, so I couldn't tell you exactly how far back that current gate is. I don't know if Sarah can offer anything, but it looks like it is closer to the road than 6 metres. So my assessment would be that any new gate, if required or proposed in the detailed design, if permission were granted, would be set further back than that current gate.
So any gates are not part of the access decision, they will be part of the reserved matters application, is that correct?
If they are to be proposed at all, they will be as part of the reserved matters application, yes.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? Councillor Virgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarah, in the report on page 52, Winkfield Parish Council make the comment that no crime has been reported. I understand that there has been crime figures reported with Thames Valley police numbers. Is that correct?
I believe that that is correct, and certainly the applicant in their information they have submitted, which has been scrutinised by us and the independent consultant, has stated that break-ins have been a regular occurrence on the site. And I think one of the support comments actually makes reference to that as well from one of the neighbouring properties.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ballyboe?
Thank you. The business was established, or both businesses were established 20 years ago. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure how long ago they were established, but they have been established for a significant time period within the borough, yes.
Okay. When the business were established, was there a need for what's it called, rural worker on that site?
Yes. You will have seen from the planning history that there was a dwelling that was formerly tied to the Oak Tree Nursery as a rural workers' dwelling. This is now being occupied by Mr. John Went, who has retired from the business. And rural workers' dwellings are conditioned for people that are either employed or last employed by that rural business. So it's not there to, case law has established that you shouldn't be kicking somebody out of their home just because they've retired from a business. And you can justify another dwelling for the person that comes in to take over that business. And that is actually covered off in the report as well.
It's like the old-fashioned tied cottages, isn't it? Yeah. And
yeah.
I know, but you could just extend it technically. That's what is my understanding. But I won't. This is questioning. We're in question now. In the report, there were actually two applications tied. Tied to sort of a rural worker on this site. There was one in 1994. And there was one in 2011.
Yes, so the one in 1994 approved the application for the rural workers' dwelling. It had two conditions on it, one that linked it to the Oak Tree Nursery and one that tied it for somebody that worked in agriculture. Forthcoming. The 2011 application was actually a Section 73 application to vary or remove condition 4 of that planning permission, and it was basically determined following legal advice that you couldn't have two conditions tying it. It was unreasonable to put two conditions on it like the 1994 condition had, so one of those was removed under the 2011 application.
What condition was that, if I may ask? Which one was removed?
Condition 4.
What is condition 4? Sorry.
Condition 4 was it was linked to Oak Tree Nursery.
I still don't understand. Sorry. It was.
Perhaps I can explain.
Yes.
Condition 4 of that application was linking it to Oak Tree Nursery. There was another condition as well, and what the officer is saying is that legal advice was that it wasn't reasonable to have two conditions doing the same thing.
Okay.
So one of the conditions was removed and the other one was left. So it's still tied.
Okay, still tied.
Yeah.
Okay. On page 57 of the agenda pack, 9.30.
Yes.
It says that the ETL are manually operated, and during frost, it says, they could affect the stock in 30 minutes. There's a key word there, frost. What about summer times?
Well, the business is growing on seedlings and plants from seed to be summer bedding plants. So at the time of my application, a lot of the polytunnels were almost empty because at that time, I think it was late summer, all the bedding plants were in the shops ready to be sold. But they will start sowing them in November, December time, so that, and they are young seedlings at the time when, in January, February, when we have a lot of hard frosts. And it's at those times that the young seedlings are susceptible to frost. And if they don't get the heating back on, then in that 30-minute window, they could wipe out their whole stock for the year. And that is why they want somebody on site to respond quickly to that type of emergency.
Okay, this is wonderful. So really, you only need somebody on site for half of the year or 3 months of the year.
Can I just clarify? No, remember, this is 3 businesses that this is being tied to, okay? One is the retail part, which is the Oak Tree Nursery. There is also World of Fish or World of Water, right? So that could be even more important in the summertime. If it gets very hot and the cooling doesn't happen, then the stock could die. And then there is the agricultural part or horticultural part that you're referring to. There are 3 businesses that this is being tied to.
Sorry, I don't still get it because I'm assuming they will need different type of speciality. So somebody that is going to operate the heater will be an engineer or fix it. Yeah, or yes, it will be then somebody that is looking after a fish.
Reset, fuse.
Okay. I don't think we're getting tied up in this again. I think it's just, it may well need just someone that answers the alarm if something goes wrong. Then they would call an engineer.
No, but Chair, these things are very important. The reason why this is important is because the only thing, this application is to build on a green belt. And the only thing that makes this, or officers are telling us makes this special, is because of this specific need, nothing else. So, well, security is irrelevant. You can buy alarms. There are other. That's what I'm saying. That this is so. We need to be clear here. And so I just want to, in my head, I want to make sure that I've got the thinking behind the officer's recommendation here.
And if I could come back and maybe help provide some clarity or some comfort. The applicant who is going to occupy is the manager that kind of oversees all 3 enterprises. So he will have the training from the Pacific managers that run the different sections, how to respond in times of emergency. So whether that is to do with going and resetting the heaters in the polytunnels, which is specifically a more of a winter-based need than an all-round year need, or whether or not it's making sure that if there's a power cut, all the pumps and the oxygenation equipment is maybe diverted onto an on-site generator so that the fish stock doesn't suffer, and the tropical fish that they have on site ready for sale are also kept at the appropriate temperatures. He will have that specific training to make sure. If an engineer is needed, then with all due respect, an engineer will not take up residence in a property, and that'll have to be a Pacific call out to a trained engineer, which, you just can't legislate against. So this is about legislating and making sure that they're doing everything they can within the realms of what is practicable.
So my last question, if I may, what I'm struggling is when you build a business like this, you know you need somebody on site. So at what point was it decided that this building had to go up, that they needed somebody after a business has been going for 20 years?
You've got to remember this application is almost 2 years old.
The business was started 20 years ago.
If I can just finish. This application is 2 years old. Now, remember, this application is for, let's call them a tied cottage, but it's also if somebody last worked there. Now, we've heard that the previous tied property, the person that lived in that has retired. Now, we're not going to throw them out, so what they're doing is they're building this property so that the existing property can still be lived in by the people that previously worked there. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a question regarding the access, because we've got a gate there already and we've got a drop curb. How long's the drop curb been there? Because when I look on Google Earth, I can't find it's been there longer than 2 years. And did it have planning permission? It may be that I'm looking at it.
Might have been useful to have that question earlier so we could have looked up the history. Unfortunately, our highways officer doesn't know.
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't know either. I think it's been there for a while.
Through you, Chair, I don't know, just to confirm that, I don't know that, but obviously this permission, should it be granted, has conditions around details requiring new details of any access alterations or changes that are needed to form a suitable access.
And the culvert.
And the culvert, that will be all included within the access works. And obviously we talked about gates earlier, so there are conditions on this that would, you know, lead to potential changes that, from what you can see out there at present.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So there's no other questions. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Page 61.
Which is on page 61. If I was seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Virgo. Members, as I said, this section 73, no, 73 is out of the brain. It says an outline application for principle of development and access only. The house that is on page 59 of your agenda papers is for illustrative purposes only, and any reserved matters, any and all reserved matters, will come back to this planning authority for further consideration of those plans. Questions were raised about whether or not this is a required property within the Greenbelt. You will see in the report that we've had professional consultants look at this who are experts in Greenbelt, look at this and give us advice that this is acceptable rural workers' property in the Greenbelt. Far better minds than ours, I hope. And therefore, I think that should alleviate that concern. It's the seconder wish to speak.
I can speak, no comment. Okay. I think that entrance actually was an old farm, actually, a long time ago. And I think that would explain it, because there was a farm on that site originally, I think. So that would explain the entrance. I'd just like to say thank you to the members who came on Saturday and saw it, because I think it made it clear to us looking around and wandering around the site. As members know, there are strict regulations about Greenbelt. We all understand this, and I understand also that residents feel very sensitive in this issue. So, you know, we bear this in mind. But I want to thank the officer and the team, actually, because they've spent a long time on this particular application. As the chairman said, probably about a couple of years, actually, just short of it, I think. And every bit of this was examined. So thank you to them. And actually, listening to the report, listening to Sarah's speech and so on, look, it's quite clear to me that there are some very special circumstances that have been proved in this case, and the need for workers to be on site to protect, as the chairman said, both the valuable animals in the building from variations in climatic conditions and thieves. And I know that because there are a lot of thieves in this area that come across the field. And I would say, the answer might say from some people, that's what the police are for. But I have to say that that doesn't always work out. So to protect the business, people have to be on site to do something about it. So, members, I think this is a really valuable asset, because many, many residents go to this site, and it provides a service to us all, as far away as Buckinghamshire and all kinds of places. So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's been proved that this is special circumstances, and I would encourage members to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dr Barnard.
The purpose of this application is for us, I think, really to test out the appropriateness of a build in the Greenbelt, and I think that officers have explained very clearly and carefully why this is appropriate. It's tied to an appropriate, as has been said, successful business in the area where there are some material circumstances that make this happen. And I think, you know, for those that look at garden centre related businesses, part of the reason this is so important is because they grow their own there. You know, they don't just import great big Pantechnicons full of plants and things. So if you have a nursery, I think it's really important that you provide somewhere appropriate for somewhere on site. And sadly, there are elements of rural crime in that area, and we know that that site has been subject to them. And I think, you know, there's been careful consideration given. I think there's also been careful consideration given to the access and things like that. And, you know, taking on board the comments of Warfield Parish Council and Winkfield that just wanted to be sure about this, I think they've been adequately addressed. So I'd like to thank officers and the independent consultant that we've employed to do this, to give us this very objective and clear view, and I have no problem at all supporting the application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I also applaud the efforts of the officers and so on. I feel this is a reasonable development in the green space. The only thing that concerns me is about the renewable energy demand and the fact that it's at least 10%. I think it ought to be more than 10% renewable in circumstances like this. But I don't know whether it's possible to make a change about that, whether it's reasonable to do so. I probably should have asked the question, but I think we should really try and make that more.
Councillor Brassard.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Very little really to say other than the fact that I felt the site visit was very valuable to understand the relationship of the various activities. It gave us, I think, a much better understanding, and I think this is very much a case of special circumstances. We look in the Greenbelt at each case on its merits, and I don't believe that what we've got here is a precedent situation. If another application comes forward, we will look at it again on its merits. It might be approved, it might not be approved, but this, I think, has merit, and it is certainly one that I would commend and thank the case officer for having worked so diligently over 2 years to come forward with what I think is an excellent submission. So thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ballyboy.
Thank you. I think I'm probably going to be the only one that speaks against this application, but I don't mind doing that. I've heard about security. On the scale of this site, I think one person living on site will not deter anybody, will not secure the site. I also will advise whoever moves into the property not to approach anybody trying to steal anything on the site, call the police. If security is a big concern here, there are professional companies that one can get that patrol things like this. It is possible. This is what most people do on large sites, industrial sites as well. So I don't buy that argument. We have a system in place. I know what they do there. A lot of these places that I've seen anyway, that I've read about, are automated. There's a lot of automation. There's a lot of technology involved to ensure that things doesn't go down. And when they do go down, they're back up systems to keep things alive. So I also don't buy that as a necessity to have somebody on site. There are various specialist requirements on the 3 businesses that are here. You need to be an engineer to know about anything about the heat pump and its system, the cooling system, whatever you want to call it. You need to know about fish. You have to be very good at it to keep them alive in case anything happens. I don't think anything will break down in an hour that will kill the fish. It's not possible. Most of us have aquariums at home. They can survive an hour. So I don't buy that either. So I am struggling. I've read the sort of special circumstances, and I don't think they're strong enough. This is the green belt. Either we protect the green belt or we don't protect the green belt. This is not a strong enough case to build a 4-bedroom house potentially for somebody just to go and switch on a light or call the police or call an engineer when something happens, because that is what is going to happen when something happens. You don't have to be on site to do this. And this is why I am struggling with this application. I'll be voting against it. I know I'm in a minority, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak? Okay. I think I dealt with most of Councillor Badibo's points earlier on in my summing up earlier. So I'm just going to put it to the vote. All those in favour to approve this outline application, please show. And those against?
It's unanimous.
The motion is carried. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, members. This is the last meeting of the Planning Committee of this administration.
Yes.
As the public will go to the polls next month, and I wish you all well. And I'd like to thank you for your patience.
And thank you, Colin, for your chairing. You put.
Yeah, and I'm just going to ask for the recording to be paused, and I declare the meeting closed.
Sorry, yes, so